Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer just launched a fierce attack on President Donald Trump, claiming Trump has no authority to restrict Venezuela's airspace in a crackdown targeting drug cartels and human trafficking networks. But moments later, Trump fires back with a powerful, fact-packed response that leaves Schumer stunned, the media scrambling, and all of Washington buzzing. This video breaks down the heated exchange, the political fallout, and why Trump's unexpected response is sending shockwaves across America.
The day had barely begun when the White House suddenly shifted from calm to chaos. It was November 29th, 2025, only hours after President Donald Trump had announced the closure of Venezuelan airspace to crush drug cartels and human trafficking networks. The sun wasn't even fully up yet, but Washington felt like it was vibrating. Phones buzzed, newsrooms panicked, and deep inside the West Wing, aides rushed from office to office, whispering like something terrible had just happened. President Trump sat in the Oval Office, the room glowing softly with morning light, when an advisor rushed in with a trembling iPad. "Sir," he said, voice tight, "you need to see this. Schumer just posted." Trump took the tablet, his face calm. But everyone else in the room? They looked terrified. They knew Schumer wasn't just criticizing a policy. He had launched a direct attack on the president's authority and on the mission meant to save American lives.
The tweet was displayed across every news channel, scrolling like an emergency alert. Schumer wrote that Trump had no authority to block Venezuela's airspace. He accused Trump of pushing America toward a costly foreign war. He warned that only Congress, his Congress, could approve such a move. He said Americans were tired of reckless actions. The room fell silent. A heavy silence, the kind that crushes you from the inside. Trump slowly set the iPad down. For a moment, he didn't speak. He looked out the window, watching the American flag sway softly. It was peaceful outside, but chaos inside.
Across the country, families who had lost loved ones to fentanyl overdoses, mothers, fathers, grandparents, saw Schumer's statement and felt something inside them break. The comments flooded social media. Why would he say this? Does Schumer care about us at all? Trump is trying to stop the traffickers. Why attack him now? One mother in Ohio, Maria, who lost her 19-year-old son to a fentanyl pill made in Venezuela, cried at her kitchen table. "Why?" she whispered. "Why would he stop Trump from saving other kids?" Her tears hit her folded hands like raindrops. Many people across America cried with her that morning.
Back in the Oval Office, Trump finally leaned forward. There was no anger in his eyes, only a deep, tired sadness. A sadness that comes from seeing your country bleed while politicians argue. "He thinks I don't have the right," Trump said quietly. "But what about the mothers losing their children? What about the girls being trafficked? What about the American families begging for help?" His voice cracked, just slightly, and every aide in the room felt a sting in their chest. It wasn't rage, it wasn't politics, it was pain. And at that exact moment, Chuck Schumer stepped in front of cameras on Capitol Hill, doubling down on his attack. He repeated every line, every accusation, every claim that Trump had no authority. But he didn't know what was coming, because in the next hour, within that same morning, President Trump would deliver a response so powerful, so fact-packed, and so emotionally devastating that Schumer would instantly regret ever speaking his name.
The early hours of November 29, 2025, grew heavier by the minute. What began as a quiet morning inside the West Wing had now turned into something far more unsettling. On every TV screen inside the White House, Schumer's words scrolled like a dark cloud drifting across America. President Trump has no authority. Reckless actions pushing America toward war. With every replay, the room seemed to shrink. An aide stepped carefully into the Oval Office, holding a stack of printed letters, not policy papers, but something far more painful. "Mr. President," she said softly, "these came in from families overnight." Trump looked up slowly. "Families?" he asked. "Yes, sir. Families who lost children to fentanyl. They saw the news. They're scared. Schumer is trying to stop you from shutting down the traffickers." The room tightened. You could feel it in the air, like a storm pressing against the windows. The aide placed the letters on the resolute desk. Handwritten notes, tear-stained envelopes, shaky signatures. One envelope had fingerprints smudged in ink, like someone was crying while sealing it. Trump opened the first letter. It was from a father in West Virginia. His son, 17 years old, died after taking a pill laced with Venezuelan fentanyl. "Please don't let them undermine what you are doing. You're the only one fighting for families like mine. Please, Mr. President, don't stop." Trump's grip tightened. He opened another, from a grandmother in Arizona. "My granddaughter was taken by traffickers in 2023. We never saw her again. You're doing what no one else did. Please don't let Schumer stop you." Trump leaned back, eyes glistening, not with weakness, but with a pain so deep it could make even the strongest viewer cry. He rubbed his forehead, like he was carrying the weight of all those families on his shoulders.
Outside the Oval Office, the media was erupting. Reporters shouted into cameras. "Schumer blasts Trump. Democrats question legality. Is the president overstepping authority?" But none of them mentioned the letters. None mentioned the parents. None mentioned the trafficked children. Only Trump saw their faces. Only Trump held their pain. Inside the room, his senior advisors tried to lighten the tension by bringing in updated security reports. "Sir," one said, "Navy surveillance confirms the airspace order is already forcing cartel planes to reroute. We also have intel that GPS interference around Venezuela increased last night." Trump nodded slowly, absorbing everything. He wasn't angry, not yet. But he was hurt, in a way he didn't show often. A hurt that came from watching the country he loved get torn apart by politics, when real American families were begging for help. A sudden knock came at the door. A Secret Service agent leaned in. "Mr. President, the press is demanding a response. Schumer is on live TV again. He's repeating the same attack. Says you're out of line." The room froze. Trump exhaled deeply, the way a man does right before he stands up to fight, not for himself, but for the people counting on him. He stood up slowly from the desk. "Get the cameras ready," he said. His voice was calm, but powerful, like a silent lion preparing to roar. Because in the next hour, he would fire back with the most devastating, fact-packed response Washington had seen in years. Schumer had no idea what was coming. The air inside the West Wing felt unusually cold, almost heavy. As President Trump walked out of the Oval Office and headed toward the small briefing room where he planned to record his response, the hallway was silent, except for the muffled sounds of reporters outside, shouting Schumer's name like they were cheering for chaos. "Mr. President," an aide whispered as she fast walked beside him, Schumer just gave another statement on the steps of the Capitol. He doubled down again. He said, "Your order on Venezuela is dangerous, unconstitutional, and reckless. It's everywhere." Trump didn't stop walking. He just nodded once, slowly, his face calm. But behind his eyes, there was something deeper, something that revealed how much he was carrying for the American people. Behind him, another aide whispered, "Sir, the families of victims, they're watching closely. They feel targeted by Schumer's words." Trump paused. He didn't turn around. He just stood there for a moment, completely still, as if their pain was echoing in his ears again. "Let's get this right," he said softly. 4 simple words, but they carried the weight of a nation.
As he entered the small recording room, staff scrambled. Cameras were adjusted, microphones checked. The red lights glowed. But there was a quietness in the room, a respectful silence, like everyone understood the gravity of what was about to happen. Dan, one of Trump's closest communication aides, stepped forward with a tablet. "Sir," he said carefully, "before we begin, you need to see this." On the screen was a viral clip, a mother outside a hospital in Florida, crying uncontrollably while clutching a photo of her daughter. Reporters surrounded her. She kept saying, "President Trump is trying to stop the traffickers. Why is Schumer attacking him? Why? Why won't they let him protect us?" Her voice cracked so painfully that even the staff in the room swallowed hard. Trump watched the video in silence. He blinked once, then twice, and for a brief moment, the strong, confident leader America voted back into office looked like a father, looking at someone else's broken family and feeling their heartbreak as his own. He handed the tablet back. Dan whispered, "Sir, we can delay the recording if you need a minute." Trump shook his head. "No, the families don't get a minute. Neither do I."
Cameras turned on. The room darkened, except for a single spotlight shining on him. Even the technicians stood straighter, like they knew history was about to happen. Off camera, reporters outside continued shouting, "Did you overstep your authority? Is Schumer right? Is Venezuela the beginning of something bigger?" But inside the room, it was silent. The kind of silence that happens just before lightning hits the ground. The director counted down softly. 3, 2, 1. Trump leaned forward, eyes burning with a calm fire, and with a steady voice that carried both love and pain for the American people, he began, "Folks, let me tell you about this total disaster named Chuck Schumer." What came next would shake Washington to its core. The moment the red recording light blinked on, the entire room seemed to hold its breath. Even the air felt tighter, like it understood the weight of what President Trump was about to say. Staff members who had been moving around moments earlier now stood frozen, eyes locked on him. Outside the door, you could hear the faint rumble of reporters, their voices crashing together like a storm growing louder by the second. Trump looked straight into the camera, calm, steady, and heartbreakingly focused. He began, "Folks, let me tell you about this total disaster named Chuck Schumer." Those first words struck the room like thunder. The staff didn't dare blink. The tone, the energy, everyone felt it immediately. This wasn't just a political clapback. This was a president who'd been pushed too far while trying to protect a nation already bleeding from fentanyl deaths and human trafficking horrors. As Trump spoke, he didn't read from notes. He didn't look at a teleprompter. He spoke straight from his heart. every word carrying the pain of parents, the desperation of the grieving, the fear of families still waiting for missing children. He said Schumer attacked him while America was begging for help. He said Schumer cared more about procedures than human lives being destroyed every single day. He said Schumer spent decades in Washington, while American communities suffered under the weight of drugs coming through Venezuela. And in that small recording room, something powerful started happening. His staff, grown adults, trained professionals, felt tears forming. Not from politics, not from anger, but from the way Trump spoke about the American people. He talked like someone who had carried their stories in his chest for years. Someone tired of watching mothers bury sons. Someone tired of politicians ignoring suffering.
Halfway through the recording, emotional tremor filled his voice. Not weakness, but a kind of sorrow and strength mixed together. It was the kind of sound that made even the coldest hearts crack open. Dan, the communications aide, swallowed hard. One of the camera operators wiped his eyes quietly. Even the Secret Service agent by the door lowered his head, deeply moved. As Trump laid out facts, the fentanyl crisis, the trafficking networks, the intelligence reports, the failures of past administrations, the tone shifted. His sadness turned into determination. His voice grew firmer, stronger, louder. He spoke about Venezuela. He spoke about traffickers. He spoke about the dead and the missing. He spoke about protecting American families. Then he delivered the line that sent shockwaves through everyone in that room. Chuck Schumer says, "I have no authority to stop these monsters." But what authority does he have to let American children die? The room went ice cold. Everyone knew instantly that sentence would rock the country. Trump continued, exposing corruption, revealing facts, calling out hypocrisy. And he did it without yelling, without rage, just raw truth delivered with the kind of power only someone fighting for the people could carry. By the time he finished, a thick silence filled the room. No one could move. It felt like watching a tidal wave rise before it crashed. The recording light went off. No one spoke. No one breathed. Dan finally whispered, voice shaking, "Sir, Washington isn't ready for this." Trump exhaled, calm but resolute. "Good," he said softly. "They need to hear it." And at that exact moment, unbeknownst to Trump, the video team was already preparing to send the clip to the press. Schumer had no idea what was about to hit him.
Inside the White House media wing, there was a quiet panic as Trump's recorded message was prepared for release. Staff members whispered urgently, passing hard drives and verifying files. No one dared make a mistake. They all understood. Something enormous had just been captured on camera. Something raw, powerful, and historic. Dan hovered over the computer station where technicians were finishing the final export. His hands trembled slightly, not out of fear, but because he knew the gravity of what was about to happen. "Is it ready?" he asked. "Rendering finished now," the technician said, voice tight. "Sir, this is unlike anything we've ever released." A shaky breath spread through the room as the video reached 100% completion. "Upload it," Dan whispered. At the same time, in the Oval Office, Trump sat alone for a moment. Outside the door, his staff waited quietly, but inside, it was just him. A man who carried the pain of grieving families, the pressure of national security, and the responsibility of protecting millions of Americans. His shoulders were heavy,
but his face remained steady. He stared at a framed photo on his desk, a picture taken years earlier with a family whose son had died from fentanyl. The mother was smiling bravely, but Trump remembered how she cried backstage before that photo. He remembered how she said, "Please, Mr. President, please protect other children." He whispered to himself, "I won't let them down."
Across Washington, reporters stood outside in clusters, eyes glued to their phone screens. News outlets had been refreshing their feeds non-stop. They knew Trump was about to respond to Schumer, but they didn't know how, or how fast. Then, suddenly, ping, ping, ping. Phones across the press crowd buzzed all at once. A CNN reporter gasped. A Fox News correspondent's jaw dropped. A young journalist from Politico whispered, "Oh my God, he actually posted it." The video had gone live on Truth Social, on X, on every major platform, within seconds. The thumbnail alone sent a chill. Trump, seated in a dim room, head slightly bowed like a man carrying a nation's pain, his eyes blazing with resolve. Reporters pressed their earbuds deeper, trying to catch every word. Inside the video, Trump began, "Folks, let me tell you about this total disaster named Chuck Schumer." The press area erupted. Some reporters gasped. Others scrambled to send emails. Some ran toward their live trucks. The energy shifted from chaotic concern to stunned silence. Every network, left, right, neutral, stopped their broadcasts. Even Schumer's staff at the Capitol froze as the video popped up on their screens. The moment Trump mentioned the fentanyl victims, several reporters lowered their heads. When he spoke about trafficked women and children, a few journalists, hardened professionals with decades of experience, quietly wiped their eyes. But then came the line that sent shockwaves deep into Washington's core. "Chuck Schumer says I have no authority to stop these monsters, but what authority does he have to let American children die?" The world went still. Even Schumer himself, sitting in his conference room surrounded by aides, felt something drop in his chest. His face went pale, his lips tightened. For once, he didn't have a comeback, because Trump wasn't attacking him with insults. He was attacking him with truth.
If this powerful story touched your heart, if it made you think, feel, or simply reminded you that America still has leaders who fight for truth, please hit that like button. Drop a comment about how you felt. Subscribe to the channel. Your support is everything. Let's grow this family together. Let's keep telling powerful stories that move the soul. Thank you for watching.